You came here to find out why Altras stink, but first there's something that we're gonna have to go do. Well, if you're anybody who's anybody, then you've heard about this through hiking thing that people like to go do. All the kids are talking about it, where you go and you go into the woods for like 4 to 6 months. You shirk all your responsibilities and all the good things you had going for you, and you go live out in the wilderness and walk for a while. You walk for a good while. And all those people that are doing that walking thing, they are wearing these Altras. Everybody's talking about them, everybody's wearing them. They got those Ultra Temps and they got those Olympuses and Lone Peaks. And they love them. They love that zero drop thing that they got going on. They love that they're so light. And those are the main two things I think that people like, and I'm here to gripe about it. And I wanted to tell you subjectively, those kinds of shoes are for people who miss their cat hole.
You going to do with your bad self? You going to do?
I missed.
So of the Ultra lineup, I've used the Temps and I've used the Lone Peaks. The Temps I picked up out of a hiker box at Shaw's Hostel, like right before the last 100 miles of the AT, because my second pair of Solomons had made it just that far, and they were kind of giving up. I needed something, but I also didn't want to buy anything because I'm like, I only got 100 miles left and I'm a cheap little butt. So I found some Temps. They were probably about a half size too small, but they were already broken in and they were in pretty good shape. So I wore those the last 100 miles, and also wore them for about a 60-mile shakedown on the Pinhoti, and then probably just did some daily wearing. And then I've also worn the Lone Peaks, which the Lone Peaks I ordered off of Reddit. They were on the Ultralight Gear Trade subreddit, and I ordered them because they only had like, I don't know, like 50, 60, 70 miles on them, something like that. Very few, but to the point where they were broken in. So I got those and wore them for the first 200 miles of my Pinhoti through hike. There were lots of things that I did not like about these shoes. You know, that big clown shoe toe box that they have, you know, it's really nice if you've got big fat wide feet, but to be totally honest with you, I don't really have the widest feet. I got pretty narrow feet, and I don't need that big clown shoe toe box. You kind of want your foot to take up as little surface area as you can, because sometimes there do be lots of hazards on the trail. I just heard a new turn. Oh. That was nice. I haven't really loved the grip on them. The grip doesn't last a super long time. It doesn't grip super duper well on especially pine straw. Holy cow, dude. When you get on some pine straw and you're walking up any kind of incline, forget about it, dude. You're just it's gonna be Slip City up in there, you know what I mean? And muddy terrain. So often on the AT and on the Pinhoti, where you got those pine straw slicks, and then you also got those mud slicks where you're walking through Vermont, forget about it. You're walking through any kind of, with AT, rains a lot, rains forever, all the time, every flipping day, almost, not really. Mud, there's mud, and the grip's just not super good for that. And especially if those suckers have 200 plus miles on them, you're gonna be busting your tail, and that's okay, you know, everybody does. Also, and I get that this is a kind of minute thing, I kind of hate tying them. I hate them becoming untied and having to retie them. I kind of see it as a waste of time. And then the zero drop thing. Everyone loves the zero drop. And you know what? There's probably a lot of truth to the zero drop situation. Everything that Ultra claims about a zero drop shoe being, you know, a great thing for through hiking and whatnot. You know, to be honest, even after having worn the Lone Peaks for several weeks as an everyday shoe, walking in it every day before I took it out onto the Pinhoti, still, even after, I mean, the first 200 miles, I was still suffering with Achilles problems the entire time. I'm dealing with some Achilles tendonitis, trying to you know, get it healed up, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it. And I tried a couple different things outside of changing my shoe. I got a brace for it yesterday when we were leaving Heflin. Then I finally changed my shoe, and literally like that day I was like, holy cow, like it was gone immediately. And I also switched to my Solomons to see if I could fix the Achilles problem, which it has been fixed. It's not just a me problem. I've heard that across a couple different hikers, many hikers, and I know it's not, you know, but sometimes when people wear Altras, they just start to get little foot problems and little ankle problems and this and that. So that's kind of a stinker, you know. But my absolute biggest, hugest, most gargantufarchin, that's not a word, gripe about them is the longevity. There's so many stories with pairs of Altras that they get less than 500 miles on them and they freaking crap out, have a young death, and they get sent to the great big hiker box in the sky. You know what I mean? They just have a history of not making it that long. They often get blowouts out the side, especially if you have maybe kind of a weird sort of gait. The tread doesn't last very long because it's so, you know, it's not very tall, you know. There's not a lot there. There's so many breaking points and failure points and weak points in the shoe that just for whatever reason haven't been addressed. So many hikers run into the same problems when they're on trail with these shoes. That's the biggest gripe for me. I can't stand the longevity thing, but that's not to say that they're all bad. There are definitely things that I do like about these shoes. Number one being, I remember when I put on those Temps, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're so light. I felt like I wasn't wearing anything. I felt like I could take off sprinting down the trail. But that lightness comes at a cost with the durability. There's also a couple success stories that I know of Altras making it, you know, living to see old age past like maybe 500, 700 miles. They are really, really nice on certain kinds of terrain, like kind of sandy, dusty, and like pebbly kind of terrain, you know, where you can just kind of fly over it. It's nice for that kind of stuff, you know, those Olympuses, they're very popular out on the PCT. And then that big toe box and that zero drop is really probably good for some folks. I just don't have that wide of feet, but some people, they might be like, oh my gosh, I have freaking monster hairy troll feet and I absolutely have to get the clown shoe because it's the only option that I have where it has a big enough toe box. You know what? I get it. I don't get it, but I get it. And the zero drop, it works for some people. Obviously, they pay for 7 pairs of shoes over the course of a through hike, but it works for them, obviously, and they like it. With all that said about Altra, with the good things and the bad things about them, I wanted to reveal to you my shoe of choice, which is what I use for all but 100 of the miles of the AT, and will be using on my Ouachita Trail hike that I'm on probably right now. And that is the Salomon Speed Crosses. On the AT, I started out with a pair of Salomon Speed Cross 4s, I think, like size 10 or something. Those Speed Crosses lasted 1,200 miles. They lasted all the way to like Delaware Water Gap. They had tape on them, I had sewn them up, and I was like, you know what, finally, I gotta let them go. I did a little sewing job on mine, but it's starting to come undone.
Actually sewing your shoes.
And I got some Wild Crosses, which they were pretty nice, but they didn't seem to have as much longevity in them. Those lasted, you know, until wherever Shaw's is. Those got toast, and then I switched to those Temps. And now I'm wearing the Speed Cross 5 wides, which I've really been liking. I don't have that wide of feet, but the width is good, having a little extra width for your feet to spread out and do that sort of thing. So it's already a little bit wider than my foot, which is nice, but so it gives me that room to spread. I love the shoe, and let me tell you the secret about the longevity of this shoe, and that is the tread. Because the tread makes this shoe sit on top of this platform. It's almost like cleats for through hiking. They're really, really nice. They're really good for mud. They're really good for pine straw. They are gonna perform really well in just any kind of terrain except any kind of like moist wooden platform. That stinks. You're gonna be sliding all over. I ate it a couple times. You cannot imagine how slick this freaking wood is. I ate so much poop on the bridge. And then I guess kind of moistish rocks, but that's normally okay. But other than that, it performs really, really well terrain-wise in pretty much every other circumstance. So that tread really lends to allowing the shoe to go much, much further because it's like a tire. You get to eat away at that tire over time, and you got just more height on that cleat as opposed to on the flippin' Altra where it's just much less space, much less width than those cleats, which are like, I don't know, like a 1/4 inch or like, I don't know, they protrude so far, and they just get eaten down so slow, and the shoe can last longer. But also I love my Salomons because I don't have to tie the dang things. They have the really nice like automatic tying where you just cinch it, and then it's just cinched for eternity. You don't have to ever uncinch it. I've never had a problem with it becoming loose. It's pretty much always set at what I feel like is the perfect comfort level. I do admit that my Salomons are heavier than the Altras. Not significantly heavier to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm just trudging down this trail. But it is a difference, and I did notice that difference, especially when I'd been using Salomons for 2,000 miles, and then I put on a pair of Timps for the first time, and I was like, jolly willikers, this is nice. But with all that said, let's go into my trailer for some final thoughts and conclusions because the sun's gone down and it's getting dark.
In conclusion, I quite like wearing the Altras as my normal everyday shoe because that zero drop, it kind of is like wearing ankle weights. You wear those in everyday life, and then you go to run and you take them off and you're like, oh my gosh, I can fly. I feel like it's the same way with like a zero drop versus a not a zero drop. If I wear a zero drop all the time during normal life and then I go to get on the trail and I throw on my Salomons, which are not a zero drop, then it feels like I'm springboarding right on down the dang trail, man. And as far as these two shoes go, I don't really notice a huge difference in comfort. I think I notice a little bit more cushion maybe in the bottom of the Ultra, whereas on the Salomon I feel it to be slightly more sturdy, and it kind of wraps around my foot nicely. I've got young 23-year-old man feet, you know, so I don't really notice things about comfort because my feet are just gonna kind of adapt kind of quickly to whenever it is that my foot is in. Whenever I'm purchasing gear, the thing that's on the forefront of my mind always is versatility and longevity. Is the thing that I'm buying gonna be usable in a lot of different circumstances, while also being able to do it for the long haul, for thousands of miles? How is it going to perform in all of that wear and tear, especially with someone dumb like me who's very bad at taking care of his gear? And while I don't see versatility as the main strong point for the Salomons definitely have the leg up when it comes to the longevity. And when you're on something that's taken you thousands of miles and multiple months, through hikes get expensive, and because of that expense, you want to be having to spend as little money on shoes as possible. And when you have to buy 4 to 6 pairs instead of somewhere like, say, 2 to 3 or 2 to 4, then that cost starts to get really big when every single one of those times is another $150 or another $100 or however much it is. And because those numbers rack up, that makes a big difference, especially when you're talking about hundreds of miles of difference in the amount of walking you can get out of a shoe over thousands of miles. Even though I'm always going to want something that's going to last me a long time, I'm also open to trying new things. And as I transition to hiking different kinds of trails, less East Coasty stuff and more West Coasty stuff, you know, more dusty, pebbly, flattish, not really flat. No trail's ever flat. That's a lie. If anyone ever tells you it's flat, they lied. Liar! And so when switching to something that's going to be a lot more terrain that's along those lines, you don't need something that's like those big freaking honker cleats like are on the bottom of the Salomons. If you like this video, it'd be awesome if you shared it with your Hike a Trash friends. Make sure we spread awareness up in here, you know what I mean? And make sure that you subscribe to see future videos of me destroying my gear in increasingly creative ways. Thank you so much for watching, and if you made it to the end, please comment what your favorite thing to hiking is and why it's not hiking boots.
Oopsie. I can't.